Hi everyone, my name is Nora Bavey and I'm the general partner of Unconventional Venture, but I'm also called the accidental general partner because this was not in my plans. So to give you a quick background of me, I truly feel like some of us end up in the world by chance. Some of us at later stages in life, but most of us at birth. And when I was very young, I came as a refugee to the Nordics. Oh, how I believe in the Nordic dream. But unfortunately, I realized that the Nordics does not believe in me, or people like me. And we're going to dig into that. But being part of the world's most gender equal region in the world, you learn that we have incredible quality of life, but we do not have equality. And growing up, I fell in love with technology. Oh, how I fell in love. I got access to all parts of the world. I was getting to know people that more felt like me than the society that I was growing up in. And I ended up being part of a startup 15 years ago. And this is a perfect saying, because at that time, what happened in Vegas stays on YouTube. And to give you a couple of backdrops to that is that the whole digital space was moving. And I ended up being responsible for some of the biggest brands at that time and today. I helped Nordic companies breaching to international markets, and I was supporting international companies breaching into the Nordics. And I was responsible for one of the world's biggest consumer fairs called the CES. And when I came there, that's where innovation was happening, right? We had product launches from all over the world. We were talking about AI machine learning 15 years ago. We were talking about, well, flying cars, but electric cars, I think, was a good start. And there, I was lacking representation because I could see when we were talking about female products or products that was targeting female consumers, they were all the way back in the venue, and they were pink and gold and glittery. Like that was all we cared about. And I realized that the more founders I was meeting and the more investors I was meeting, they were very much alike. And I realized not everyone gets the same validation to build a product and service. I realized most of us do not get the opportunity to build for us. And I will move into that. But I started to work very intentionally with something that I called the diversity impact. And this was before we had the McKinsey report that stated that gender diverse companies are more profitable and so on and so forth. But the problem is that as long as we were focusing on gender, we were keeping other identity measurements out. Obviously ethnicity from a personal level, but there was so much intersectionality being left out. So I took a deep dive. And I realized that there's so many things that could happen if the DNA of a company is tapping into the most accelerating component of a company. So we know the numbers, 25 more profitable if you have a more gender balanced company, but did you know that you actually have 36% if it's more ethnically diverse? The other part was, I love people talk about the pace of innovation. We also need to rebrand innovation. It is not a new size or a new color. It's doing something totally different. It actually increases up to 45% when we put in gender identity measurements. But the interesting part is, if you look at it from a cultural perspective, if a company is committed to diversity, inclusion, and belonging, we will step into that belonging soon, I realized their ability to innovate increased by 83%. Now, if I was a founder, a data-driven founder, or a data-driven investor, that's the opportunity, right? That's the alpha. But I realized we've been talking about inclusivity for so long, and that's a conversation we would have 10 years ago. Let me tell you about belonging. Belonging is really building culture where everyone has a seat. We talk about inclusivity, that we're pulling up chairs for everyone to have a seat, but the problem is, what does our culture mean? And here's the fun fact. Did you know that almost 60% of women mid-career leave the tech industry because it's not inclusive or have a culture that is creating a belonging. Now, if we're constantly focusing on teaching younger women or younger generation to be part of an industry and creating role models, well, the role models of today are leaving. So I realized in 2015, my beloved industry, technology, was building on the wrong presumptions. Now, this is a trigger warning. I just want to give it that in advance when it comes to racism and sexism.
Are the gravest dangers if these questions do not get asked?
I think the gravest dangers are we take the world that we live in now and we make it the world in perpetuity moving forward. So all the things about the current world that don't feel right is what the data reflects, right? It's a world where women aren't paid as much as men, where certain kinds of populations are subject to more violence, where we know that certain decisions get made in manners that are profoundly unfair. If you take all the data about the way the world has been, and that's what you build the machinery on top of, then we get this world as our total future. And I don't know about you, but I'd like something slightly different.
So I became an edtech founder, founded the company called Unitech. It was the Spotify of technical education, teaching blockchain, teaching machine learning, and so on and so forth. And I had an incredible talent pool of diverse people I could feed into the tech system or the tech industry because everyone was complaining about the talent shortage. But I realized two things. First of all, talent is scarce and talent is a shortage if you look at the same talent pool. Secondly, I realized that my industry was so focused on who I was and what I represented that I never really got an opportunity. I was fundraising like crazy and I was an interesting founder, right? I was a sole female founder, immigrant background, woman of color, but also pregnant with my third. Talk about a superwoman. But the comment that I was getting was like, you have the confidence of a tech bro. Now, what is that from investors? And I was going nuts. So I realized, if you do not think representation matters, then you're probably well represented. So let me give you the additional numbers to that, to give you an idea, because we constantly talk about the next generation. Well, it's going to get better. We need more inspiration. Let's find female founders. Let's find founders of color and let them be inspiration. So I go back to what I said in the beginning. If we haven't done it in the past and we don't do it present, what does it mean for our future? So I did this yesterday. Maybe some of you heard. But raise your hand if you know who Ada, Grace, Catherine, Mary, or Dorothy is. Raise your hand if you know who Steve, Bill, Daniel, Elon, or Jeff is. Raise your hand if you know who Ugur and Özlem is. Steve, Bill, Daniel, and the gang was not able to build any of their products or companies if it wasn't for the women. So today, innovation in the true history of innovation is not even visible. And if we talk about Ugur and Özlem, they're actually the founders of BioNTech, the vaccine. Why aren't we talking more about them? And if you knew about them, they were actually the Nobel Prize winners in medicine in 1996. No one knew of them, and still doesn't. So, you know what? I'm a problem solver. I use frustration and anger as a tool, and it's quite powerful when you set your mind to it. So in 2020, I became the general partner at Unconventional Ventures. We focus on diverse founders building impact tech companies because the present and the future we want to be part of is both equal and sustainable. And the only way we're going to reach true impact if we add the diversity impact to the very core of what we're building. But when I talked about we have an incredible quality of life, but we do not have equality, what does that tell us about the past and the present when trying to predict the future? Well, this is Europe for us. Less than 2%, actually 1.1% of all funding goes to all female founding teams. Now, that has been that way for the last 10 years. Now, I don't know about you, but if you're going from around 0.3 to around maybe 2% for 10 years, now if I was a doctor, that flat line, I would be dead. But here's the interesting thing. When female founders get funded, they get as little as 1/3 of the check size. But funny enough, they actually overperform or perform 2.5 times better. So the data is constantly telling us that the best founders today are not being invested in. So if that doesn't convince the investors, how about the 73%? Did you know that when a company is more diverse, they are 73% more likely to build an impact company? Meaning companies that actually are solving some of the most global pressing issues of our time. So, I love to talk about the pipeline problem. How many of you heard the pipeline problem? I heard it yesterday. And I think it goes back to the original. If you don't think representation matters, then you're probably well represented. And we've been living in a fake news, fake it till you make it era, but we're actually at a point where you can't fake it anymore. It has to come from within. And I love how everyone talks to us, but how do you do the work? How are you representing? So let me tell you about us. The reason our pipeline is incredibly talented and diverse is because we look at a broader talent pool. And the reason why we are getting this, besides me being incredibly smart, no, not so much, but a little bit, I have this incredible group supporting us. We take representation seriously. This is the DNA of Unconventional Ventures. Our DNA leads to this. It's a correlation between who we are, what we do, what we know, that gives us that incredible potential. So if there's anything I want you to take away with you, look who's always is sitting in the same room as you. If the lack of representation in those spaces do not occur to you, then please ask yourselves why. And I would love, if there's anything I want you to take away with you, do the +1 rule. If you have the opportunity to bring a +1, bring with you someone who do not have access. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope to see you everywhere being more part of our ecosystem that is both diverse and sustainable. Thank you.